Why do you coach? Welcome to the Nick Anthony Show. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Nick.
How you doing today, Nick?
I'm great.
Why is that?
Well, another exciting day, another beautiful day. And I am golfing today with our guest, Joe Ceglia.
Welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining us.
This is the bribe to get him on the show. But Joe, yeah, psyched you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
And so let me give you a quick bio, give everyone a quick bio on Joe. Joe is currently the Rye-Neck School District Athletic Director in Westchester County, New York. He's been doing that, not necessarily all at Rye-Neck, but for an athletic administrator for 17 plus, something like that. He is hate to say it, he's a Syracuse grad.
Go Orange.
Yeah. He has 2 master's degrees and another certificate, which is, he's an academic All-American at Syracuse. He's a national champion at Syracuse. I won't date him with the year. He played professional lacrosse, captain of 2 championship teams, was also in Philadelphia and Toronto in those. And he's a parent. He's a husband, and he's a 7.0 golf hand. His index is 7.0. So. I don't know in those, Anthony, I don't know in all those, that bio, what he's most proud of. It could be the last one.
I'm not trending index for sure.
It is a trending index, I will say.
I tell you, Joe, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to meet you in person. I watched your Hall of Fame induction video that they created for you on YouTube. I mean, they didn't create it on YouTube, but it's on YouTube. And I'm telling you, you are such an incredibly driven and resilient person. It's amazing. That was so impressive.
I describe Joe as a high achiever. He is I don't want to say he's outkicks his coverage.
Some people say stubborn at times.
but okay, I'm going to be nicer than you two guys because you know each other so well. You're going to be mean to each other. But I tell you, incredible resilience, right? And just the fact that you work so hard after getting, I'm going to use the word rejected. I don't know if you felt rejected, but rejected, and then working through it anyway and getting to the point to where you are a professional in your sport, the sport that you obviously loved. It's incredible. It's only 4 minutes, but it's such an
Well, yeah, to give context, Joe started at Gettysburg started at Gettysburg because he couldn't get. Go ahead. What are you?
No, that's it. Sorry.
Yeah. Or you can tell the story if you want.
It was I came from a very strong community town, Yorktown, and a lot of guys, that was kind of the ticket out. You use the lacrosse stick to be a vehicle to get education and to go on to, have a career and whatnot. And I was undersized, so the recruiting experience for me was a little different. But I'll take a step back, Anthony, to what you said about resiliency. It's when I guess at this point, when you look back at it and you analyze it, I understand where the term or the label comes from. For me, it was what you did. There wasn't. No. I never thought about, wow, I'm really trying hard to bring resilience. Like, there is really no option. That's anything else is a waste of time. If that makes sense.
It does.
But because of that could lead to some frustrations in my current role, or observing others in my role, or that may work with me or under me, per se. And I'm sure it'll lead to some frustrations as if my children pursue athletics. I joke that I hope they play an instrument and like to dance, because it's a crazy world, interscholastic athletics, but just sports in general. As in our day and age, it really wasn't a revenue generating private industry factor for youth, and now it's a $15 billion a year industry.
Right.
With money comes issues.
So again, along with that is that Joe's also the co-founder and co-owner of Maverick Showtime Lacrosse camp? What do you? What's the? Is it just?
It really just it's like Prince. It was just Maverick Showtime. We don't. It just says Bono.
Which is, I mean, you know, basically one of the probably the biggest or most prominent high school boys lacrosse showcase in the country. So it's and what part of what, like, you know, I think Anthony and I'll get into why you do what you do, but I also would like going with what you just said. Did you ever think about what your ceiling was? I mean, or did that ever cross your mind? That
in what context? Player,
I think in
entrepreneur,
life,
or
I think in life. I would say as a player, because that's what you were talking about. But
I guess interestingly, I firmly remember and reflect back, not really knowing what my end game was or what I wanted to do. And to put that off, it was just stay in the moment that what you're doing, which was lacrosse, and just keep plugging away at that and see where you end up. I mean, I went out to Drexel I was fortunate enough to be a graduate assistant at Drexel University because I didn't know what I wanted to do going to my senior year at Syracuse. I knew I didn't want to go into the workforce, but I didn't know what that looked like. So how can lacrosse open a door to put off the inevitable, but have me enjoy the current time?
Right.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Right. But what's impressive in the video is what you did. And again, I think you're downplaying your resilience, and that's it's very humble of you. But we all know lots of kids who didn't keep pushing and didn't keep going. And for you to,
I think we'll get into that.
What's that?
I think we'll get into that. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, but really to say, okay, I can't get into the school I want to get into. I'm going to go to Gettysburg and I'm going to play there, and I'm going to keep trying to go higher.
By the way, Gettysburg's a very good Division III program. Not to
it is.
You know, but
that's not. He wanted more, right?
Yeah.
He
But
wanted
that
more in
played
D3.
going there played a vital role in part of the process, one of the steps. If I didn't go there, the rest of the story probably doesn't happen. So they was instrumental in a positive way.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean that, but I also but a lot of people wouldn't have even gone there. They would have said, "Oh, I can't do what I want. My dream's over. I'm done."
By the way, this is coming from the guy who swam the English Channel, failed once, right? Like
Right.
you just got
failures.
You just were told no by Division I teams. This guy almost drowned.
I did not almost drown. That's a different story for a different day. That's all exaggeration. I was fine. I was just a half mile from France when that happened. But that's a whole nother story. But no, it's just really super impressive, especially at that age.
Yeah.
I was a lot older when your story happened that you're telling now. But
so let's get into what you do.
Yeah.
Why athletics? Why athletic director? Why high school and you know? I mean, it's not just school district, but yeah.
So I think there's always been a comfort level in sports. So, and I, achieved success within the arena. So I wanted to continue doing that. And then as I was thinking about it, why do I like sports so much? Is because of the positive experience I had. So going to athletic administration was really about how could I provide the same or assist in providing a rewarding or similar experience that I had. So, it's, I guess, some self-serving and selfish why I went to athletic administration. One thing I will say, and I think one of the things I like about this show and Nick's involvement is he's openly admitted being a failure as a coach. And a lot of the, and I actually didn't know that, watching a previous episode, that's where I learned about that element of Nick and coaching the ninth grade basketball team. I look at it as I wish I would have coached longer because I jumped into athletic administration when I was 30 years old, and I coached in college, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have really enough time to develop as a professional coach in a sense. And a lot of my learning and my opinions on what good coaching is come more from observation rather than being on the sideline and in the trench, putting my concepts or my beliefs into practice.
Right.
Which I hope one day I think I will do, in retirement or something like that.
Right. So what are some of those things that make a good coach?
My experience from a player into what I do now, communication is key. It's vital. It doesn't have to necessarily be in different types of communication. So if you're going to communicate to the most talented player, that's not the same communication to the least talented player on the team. Everybody has value. Be able to show that. So communicating with the kids and with my line of business, fortunately or unfortunately, also having the ability to communicate to parents that or in essence, your clients in a sense. So communication is critical. Organization, you have to be organized. And I'm projecting what, people who work for me, what I lay out as expectations, because I feel my expectations are going to make you successful in the line of work that we're in. And really just caring about kids. You don't have to be an expert in the sport. You have to be an expert in kids, experts in human, at least try to be. You're not going to get it right on the first time, but I want to see somebody shift or try to make it better or improve the next time. So I think those are important, and having the awareness and being self-aware certainly helps. I'm very self-aware of myself, and I think it's a strength, but at times it can be a weakness. But I work on that, and I'm actually open to the coaches or people I talk to saying, "Hey, I get it. This is how I come across, but this is what I mean." So really, openness and communication are vital to being successful, to enjoying the job.
And talk about that communication in terms of timing of communication, right? So you mentioned parents. Parents are obviously a huge part of sports, youth sports, high school sports, now college sports. Talk about how you deal with parents and not just parents. I mean, it's laying out expectations and such. And then, one thing we want to roll into, I think, at some point is because of your experiences at every level. I think that's what's part of this is you've had experiences at every level, is how that type of communication changes. It's a lot of questions in there. So go where
I would say I wasn't aware of parental involvement until I was coaching in a middle school team, starting a program from scratch. And it was nice because I was starting a program from scratch in a sport that nobody knew was going on. So they really looked to me for help rather than critique what I was doing. So that was a home run. That was easy. But then becoming an athletic director, 90, I'm not just saying this, but 90% of the parents are great. Might even be higher. It's the ones who have delusional or unfair expectations of what either a program is supposed to be or what their child's abilities are or what the sport is supposed to do for that kid. So changing that mindset is, I often say, it's like, not what is the sport going to do for you, but what can you do for the sport or what can you do for your team? So trying to flip that mindset certainly helps.
Are you able to do that in your role? And do you have that kind of influence? Because that's impressive. I think you do, knowing you and knowing what you do and how you do things. I feel like you...
I think that, so doing this for 17 years, and I really haven't changed my style much. I think people know what to expect if their kid's going to opt into our program. And if you're going to coach, what you could expect to get from me as a coach. Part of my role, less of my role is about developing coaches, and a lot of it is protecting's the wrong word, but managing the dynamic between community and coach, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So it's part of the job I do enjoy. Parents, and for the most part, like I said, part of a strategy that I'll use is, listen, if I have a roster of 22 people, 44 parents, whatever it is, there'd be a couple of, loose screws. But if I have those conversations on the sidelines or on the phone or being accessible and always be able to answer a question and clarifying, I've now engaged those people. Or now I always say to them, now you have the message, share it with people. And if anybody comes to you with a question or a criticism, stop it and tell them to come to me. Ask the question. Don't create a rumor mill.
Yeah. How do you want coaches to communicate with you? I mean,
coaches or parents?
Coaches.
Okay.
Phone, email, text, in person. What I tell them in every preseason meeting, I don't want to be surprised. So I don't want to walk in on a Tuesday morning with two parents outside my office and I don't know why they're there. So, and my coaches are great. I've been very lucky. We have a good crew, and I think it's part of, because I communicated. I tell them, don't be afraid. I'll get a text 10 o'clock at night. I always start with, "Oh, I'm sorry." Like, don't be sorry. That's why I tell you to contact me. Because the more information I have, the better I am able to help you. It's worked out so far. So, yeah. And those the coaches who are not able to do it, we may have to have a difficult conversation in the season saying,
So you do develop your coaches though, because
you probably develop in different ways.
Right.
I think what you're getting at is you don't know you are, but you set a tone and a right. I mean, an expectation for them that they have to develop into.
Yeah, but I think they do know there's at least a baseline expectation where they come into meetings like, don't get mad if they start with that. They know that it's probably something that was,
you're going to be mad.
It's going to be something that they knew, hey, my bad,
Right.
help me fix, which is fine. Come in that way and it's fine. They've
So
they've helped me and I've helped them.
We'll be right back to the Nick Anthony Show.
Today's show is brought to you by Rio the Film, available for free on YouTube. Access the documentary at www.riothefilm.com. That is RIOthefilm.com. Watch the inspiring true story of swimming the most iconic marathon swims in South America. www.riothefilm.com.
Welcome back to the Nick Anthony Show.
So when something happens, and let's say they do mess up, right? Do you encourage them to come to you even if they don't have a solution?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And because I want to either help with the solution or help them brainstorm it, figure it out. Sometimes there isn't a solution. Sometimes it's just therapy session. They got to get off their chest, or I got to get off my chest, and it is what it is.
Right.
And tomorrow comes, the sun's going to rise, and that's what it is. Let's try not to do it again. Let's try not to replicate this. Or what could we have done to prevent it?
Yeah. What are you? Because you are, in a lot of ways, your job is so much different than mine. And we talked about I'm able to try to develop coaches, right, and work with coaches. And we've talked about there's a part that you're envious that I can actually have a lot of those kind of development conversations. And but you are working on a lot of the end is working with coaches and having expectations. And it is so much about you're in a public school with like safety and so many different things. What are those things that you're empathetic to because you have a high level of empathy, so when coaches come in, obviously don't get mad, but what are those things that you're actually kind of, you see in them and you can want to help them and not you have to help them on things. What do you want to help them with?
So they're not, we've had this conversation where you have professional coaches. We don't have professional coaches. So trying to work-life balance or have them understand that, hey, you need to help out. If you have an assistant coach, they need to do something. You got to figure out a schedule around that. Checking with them. Are you okay? What's going on? Because you just had a 7-hour work teaching day and now you got to go out for 2 hours or an hour and a half and be high energy, be positive and carry, you just dealt with 150 kids and what they're coming to school with. Now you have another roster of 20 kids dealing with things. So I just want people to really want to work with me and for the school because they like working with kids. And if they happen to have an expertise in a certain sport, that's gravy. But at the end of the day, if you're able to make a kid, I can't remember, it's terrible, I don't remember, but a legendary UCLA softball coach, I saw her give a speech and she said, kids they don't remember the wins or losses. They remember how it felt to play for you. And I tell my coaches that every preseason meeting. And I just hope it resonates with them because if you keep that at the forefront, I think that really impacts how you design each day, whether it's practice or a contest.
That's pretty good. So we'll switch a little bit. Maybe we'll go back to some of that stuff. But the best coaches you've been around, if you don't want to call them out by name, it's up to you. And why? Where have you just been impressed? Where it's like, God, that is a good. I've been coached well, and then what lessons did you learn? I
guess personally, I would say, and I take things from my friend Josh. His father's my little league coach, and all the time I was like, how does anybody let this man around youth? I have no idea. but he also told me that's a joke. He told, I don't know if he took it from somebody or if you've all heard it from somebody else, but he always said, the way you practice is the way you play. And that just always, it was like green light, go. It was never like, I don't know, that just resonated with me. So he was
the impact of a coach. They were in youth sports, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like how they could change the trajectory of someone's life. And then in high school, I had a guy, Tim Scher. He's actually the coach back at the alma mater now. He's very good at it, and I thought about this. When people, the way I'm wired, if you tell me to do something, but I don't have reason to believe believe in what you're saying, it goes in with one ear out the other. But if you're able to say it in a way that it makes sense from like an educational standpoint, like, oh, that's why you want me to do it, that makes sense. Tim Scher does that. He was awesome. Kevin Donahue at Syracuse wasn't even my coach. He was just a coach on staff. But for some reason we connected. I think maybe a sense of humor. He was a middle school science teacher at West Jenny High School. He was very good at explaining the game, and he had he saw the game differently. And it was very interesting and intriguing to try to see through his lens. And then Tony Resch, a local product, he's just such a leader of men. I don't know why we have this. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. Can't like finger.
We got to get him on the.
Yeah,
we got to get him on the show. He's a common name that'll come up
in
the lacrosse world and anything. But
I think his honesty is probably, and I guess I always admired he had to manage such a crazy collection of humans, both indoor and outdoor. You know, I was on a team where our most skilled player was like, I'm not coming to practice. And if you know Tony,
this is the pros.
Yeah,
so it's a little
he's
different.
and Tony was able to manage this roster where not only did this player not come to 95% of the practices, but nobody cared on the team. And we understood it, and Tony had a way of just managing the personalities where it all just meshed and it made sense. And obviously, you knew he came with expertise in the game, and he did it himself. So I think that multi-prong approach to it really helps him, but it really is just the way he interacts with humans is off the charts.
High E. It's a common trait that we keep coming up with coaches that we admire or such. So I guess with some of that stuff and what you implement, with like, do you as a department have core values that you talk about that are like non-negotiable and they're values that you shoot towards, or do you give your coaches a little autonomy?
I definitely give autonomy. I'll give my preferences or like my hints where I'll say, certain things that I have as bugbears, like I hate lines. So
you hate
lines in practice. So be efficient in your practice. Length of time doesn't equate to quality of practice. Do what you need to do. Do it with respect in the sense like I don't like screamers. I don't like F-bombers. That's not coaching. That's theatrics, and that's a mask of not really knowing how to coach. And communicate. That's really it. And I let the programs kind of roll. Can
you go back to that and emphasize that again? That F-bombs and yelling and the screaming is a mask. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit?
I think it could be a filler for people because when they don't know either how to communicate it or they're trying to it's masking. There's a gap. They're not able to either instruct it from a teaching standpoint or emotionally they're just not connected. They lose it. And that's a way of, I think they justify it with themselves as saying, no, this is the right way. This is how it has to happen. And why aren't they getting it?
Gotcha. I'm going to go back again.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Question. But go back to your lines thing. You talk so fast, Joe. You're like one of those people that puts 10,000 thoughts in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So I want to pull it back a little bit because you really hit on a huge pet peeve of mine as a parent, right? Not as right, but the lines. Just because it happens all the time. I see it all the time. All different coaches. I'm not calling out any one coach, but I see it all coaches all the time in water polo. It's like they form 2 lines, and the kids are lined up, and they take a shot. They go back to the end of the other line, and if there's 20 kids in the water, they're getting 1 shot off in I'm exaggerating it, but in like 5 minutes. So they're inactive. They're treading water, so it's a little active, but for them, it's not really work. They're just sitting there treading water. So when you see lines, what tips do you give them not to have lines?
So I
If
believe
this is too tactical, sorry,
it's
but
not. It's
No,
not. I
it's
actually think
I think it's a big
It's
deal.
applicable to
I've
every
actually-
It's
sport.
soccer. I see it like
Yeah.
it's so many things.
I've
right?
actually thought of it'd be cool if someone almost a practice plan consultant to help, because for me, I see the biggest deficiencies in athletes or programs or sport. It's going to sound obvious and common sense to people like Nick and I and you with strokes with swimming. It's fundamentals. So when you're in lines, you're just taking away time for hitting on fundamentals.
Right.
So again, I'm not telling anybody how to do their job, but if I'm a basketball coach, or I'll use lacrosse as an example, just shifting from line drills where two kids are having to catch at one time to adding more balls and breaking them up into smaller groups to get more reps, that's going to be fundamentally better and develop their skills more. So I'll say to my basketball coach, do you need more basketballs? Why you ask me that? I go, because I have a rack of basketballs. There's only 2 balls off the rack. Why isn't everybody pounding a basketball into the court?
Dribbling while they're in line.
Yeah, and that was a former coach. But I took away learning there for that sport in particular when I hired my next coach. I want to see fundamentals. I want to see that as a deficiency we have. I want to see boys and girls dribbling basketballs. I just think lines kill attention and they kill fundamentals, especially if you're a kid that needs to be engaged. Last thing you want to do with me, you put me in a line of 10 kids, I'll be out of my mind. I'll lose interest quick.
Right.
That's why I think football coaches have a real hard challenge because, I look back at my high school football career, which was subpar at best, but I vividly remember standing there and just waiting and waiting and waiting till you got your rep or till second offense is in or whatever it was. And then next thing you know, you're out there for 3.5 hours when you might have moved 20 yards.
And I think
Tell them about 4th grade.
Oh, I know about 4th grade. I have pictures. But I shared the same thing. I was 7th grade animal, 9th grade scrub. You weren't a scrubbing guy, but
I was a scrubbing. Yeah, I just went downhill.
But
What? Go ahead.
but actually, you just triggered thoughts, and that's what this is about. So, like for me in water polo, I'm thinking like, I love what you said. They should be dribbling. If nothing else, if they're in line, they could be dribbling. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They could be still waiting to do it.
Well, and that's a simple thing when a staff like with Joe has, right?
Yeah.
Where the staff doesn't have multiple coaches,
They
like
could be
4 or
working
5 coaches like they do in college, right?
They could be just dribbling with their left hand.
Correct, because it's easier in
But even
college.
still, if there's not a lot of in water polo, I'm thinking if there's just like one coach, and sometimes that happens, right?
Yep.
They can be in line. They could still be doing tip drills to themselves.
Yep.
They could be in line doing tip drills to each other. You could take some of them and make the line shorter, and take the ones that aren't in that short line for 5 minutes and put them out, and they could be working on their passes to the side, and then everybody rotates. You can do all that with one coach. So anyway, thank you. That's great.
Well,
I looked at, and part of that also is I realized when I came out of coaching college, I went from coaching college kids who are my age, some are even older than me,
Right.
and they already knew lacrosse. So I really trying to figure out how to teach whatever I was being asked to teach, to then going to being charged with starting a brand new lacrosse program for 7th and 8th grade kids that have never played before. So I had 45 kids that never played lacrosse before.
Oh my gosh.
And it was the best experience ever. But I learned where I need to do these things because I can't have them just sit. They're not going to know how to catch and throw if they're just learning about standing there thinking about offense.
Right.
So, and the community was a very big football community. So by second practice, I broke them up into football teams with lacrosse sticks and said, we're going to play 5-on-5 football rules, but with sticks. So they were running patterns, this and that, but they forgot that they were trying to catch and throw when really they were catching and throwing, they were running their plays. So
brilliant.
masking that.
Brilliant.
And then I should have said this with my fundamentals. I tell my coach all the time, I know I don't look like a runner. I'm not a runner, nor a swimmer. I hate running because conditioning was always punishment. So something I made sure I did when I became a coach is you have to condition. It's a part, you have to do it. When I was at Syracuse, they did a great job. When we got in trouble, we ran. Never happened. But they were very, very good at every single drill. There's a high level of talent there, but everything we did was uber competitive. So guys were going 100 miles an hour, so you'd have to worry about conditioning us. Guys who weren't going 100 miles an hour, they weren't playing. So it was built-in conditioning there. When I worked with these kids,
That's brilliant.
I had to take myself. I didn't want them to think that I was punishing them because they had to run to get in shape. So I just put the clock as the enemy, and I would break them up and say, "Hey, you're a midfielder. You need to be a horse. You need to run. So you need to do a lap around the field in 42 seconds. You're a defenseman. You're not going to run as much. I'll give you 47 seconds. So don't make me the enemy. Make the clock the enemy, and give them a goal."
Right.
So that really worked well with them. Where I'd have to have kids. A defense be like, I could beat the midi. Let me go in the midi group, or let me go with the attacker so slow, wall blow him out of the water. So that was something that I was very cognizant of. Is from a conditioning standpoint, don't make it about punishment, make it about competition.
Right.
And going back to the standing around the lines, I think a lot of sports would do themselves a favor to watch soccer. If you ever watch a soccer practice, a soccer even warm up, the ball's always on there. It's all about the touch. It's like this, there's something going on, but then they're over in a corner, a group, 5 of the 6 of them, and they're just literally playing keep away. So it's like, it's a constant activity. I do find in certain sports, the culture has become a little bit of standing around. Like it's almost like acceptable. And I work with coaches about, I think the tempo of a practice is so important. The rhythm, the not standing around, because I think they not only do they get better skills, their brains their adrenaline's still going. They don't have to ramp up again to go, oh, I'm standing on the sidelines, blah blah blah. Now I do think there's a time and place for them to listen and learn, right? I mean, we're putting in a set. Everyone needs to learn it. Sure. So there are those implementation, I think, periods of practice. Right. But I 100% agree with Joe. I think a lot of coaches think more is more, right? More time. And it's like, you don't have to be there. Like tempo, put it in, get things going, move into. I learned a lot of that after my playing career at just going to the Eagles practices and the rhythm of a football practice at that level. I'm sure at different levels, my kind of exposure was the Eagles was wow. I mean, it is, and now they have a lot of staff and they have, the equipment manager, the one blowing the whistle, pointing where everyone's going, but it is like boom, boom. They run the drills. They like all the conditioning is coming through that stuff. So I think the practice, the way you said, the way you practice, the way you play, that was a youth. And that is so true. It's so true. And I think if you stand around and, you're going to play low energy.
And even there's a classic story of Dean Smith when he was recruiting Kenny Smith, who was at the time the #1 point guard in New York City. And he walks into the gym for warm-ups. He got there for warm-ups. And he left before the game even started. And they said, well, why are you watching the game? He said, I saw everything I needed to see. Because I saw the way he treated his teammates in warm-ups, and the guy was sweating profusely, and he worked his butt off in warm-ups. That's a guy I want.
That's pretty cool.
That's a great story.
It's a great story because we talk about PKE and E, and then evaluating E and in the players you want, or in Joe and I's case, a little bit the E you want in coaches. Right. But yeah, I think that's brilliant.
Thanks for joining us. That's the end of part 1 with our conversation with Joe Ceglia, co-founder of Maverick Showcase and a high school athletic director. Please join us next week for part 2. Looking forward to it. Thanks for watching the show today. I had a great time talking with Nick, as I always do. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Visit us on social media. Also, go to our website if you've got comments, questions, you want to call me an ugly name, thenickanthonyshow.com. There's a place to do it there. Give us your email address so you never miss an episode. Thank you very much. We'll see you next show.